We're going bowling at the Dome. Bowl season is here, and the Reavers are playing in the postseason for the 7th consecutive season. Despite the roller coaster of a year, the Reavers have ripped off 3 straight victories and are poised for a 4th on December 4th. It won't be easy as the Reavers face off against yet another top 10 opponent. We'll talk about that game and look back at the 2016 season. Strap in. It's the Stroh Show, and it's coming up next on CBTV 17 and the Reavers Sports Network. From the studios of CBTV 17 in Council Bluffs, Iowa, this is the Iowa Western Football Coaches Show. I'm Jake Ryan, joined by the head coach of the Iowa Western Reavers, Mr. Scott Stroh. Coach, it hasn't always been easy sailing in your coaching career. You were at NYAC for a couple of years, and while you did turn that program around, there was a couple rocky years before you started going bowling every season. This year has been up and down. Now you get to go bowling again, but obviously it hasn't been the smoothest of seasons. You spoiled people in Council Bluffs with the success that you had. What have you taken from your early seasons where maybe the record wasn't always perfect or close to perfect and applied it to this year where maybe things haven't gone the way you've seen them to go?
Well, I think, always at this level, sometimes when you don't, it doesn't go the right way. Some kids, can check out sometimes and where they feel that there's nothing to play for. So, and I remember the first year when we were 2-6, first year head coach, when you think you have all the answers and it's going to be that easy, just in how you got to change it up and try to get them to stay committed to what you're trying to do and that there's a purpose. You can't always win them all, but you only get to play football for so long. But I felt our guys did a good job this year because we were in 2 different stretches that it could have went the other direction and they battled through.
Well, you fall to 3-5, but a pair of victories back-to-back, and then the College of DuPage comes to town. Let's check out those highlights. Reavers all-time 9-0 against the Chaparrals, looking to keep that perfect record. It's sophomore day, as you can see, the sophomores introduced, and then the captains as well. And we thank Jeff Diamond for coming out, one of our friends that also served some time in Afghanistan and across the sea, and he was our honorary coin flipper. As the Chaparrals go to work, the handoff up the middle, and not much room there for the tailback Darius Burst, and they try that early field goal. Guess what? It is no good. A windy day, and it certainly didn't help things there.
Right. They came out, to give them credit, they came out and did a nice job right away, put themselves to try to score, get on the board, and luckily they didn't score anything.
Nick Easley continuing to have an excellent season as Andre Nunez finds him down. He gets undercut there on the sideline, but a 1st and goal. Pretty good run by Nick Easley. Did you know about his run after catch ability?
Yeah, we thought we did. I'll say this, I don't want to say it's a surprise season because we had high expectations for him, but I think he's even overexceeded them.
Here's another pass out to Easley as you start the second drive after Nunez punches it in from 1 yard out. Gets the push. That's always a good sign when your receiver is standing up and pushing the defenseman down as he goes out of bounds.
Yeah, for sure. And like we come out, that was actually a good one there. Austin Arndt, making a catch with breaking a couple tackles to score. That's what we really need to do, is score from distance rather than sitting inside the 5.
Austin must have wanted to go bowling because he knocks over a couple defenders there on that touchdown catch for the good gain. And of course, you guys go up 14-0. It's a little bit easier to breathe when you're up a couple of scores early on, isn't it?
For sure, it changes in a lot of things. Your play calling and the different thing. Here we try a little pass or double or reverse pass or toss pass, whatever, halfback pass. And
Coach Mick, you said that was supposed to go to somebody else, and somebody got in D'Anthony's ear, apparently.
And that was my fear of that one. In practice, they practice that, and you never want to see it happen in a game.
Quick pass to LOR'RENZO Pratt, good gainer. Nunez scrambling, and then he takes off. His running ability is exceptional when he's able to get out of pressure, and he showed it there.
Yeah, he does. That's probably his best is, moving within, when he finds a crease within the pocket and running, that's when he's going to be more dangerous. He's not necessarily just the running quarterback.
That drive stalled out after a holding penalty on that exact same play. And then you get it back. Nunez going to work again. Quick pass out to Goldborn as the half starts to wind down.
Yeah, we wanted to get something and then come back, have one shot. I was, we're thinking, should we take a timeout or should we go for it? And ended up going and ended up scoring.
Find Lorenzo down that seam. So you go into halftime up several scores. Feels pretty good. There you are getting interviewed by the buckethead, Travis Jacobson, on the sideline, and then back to it in the second half. And how about the tip by Van Ginkel there? Tobias Moss finally gets in the end zone, but the pick six, you guys go up even further.
Well, that's a good way to start, to get going in the second half. When we're playing with the wind and not giving them an opportunity to get back into it. Now we get another one here, Van Ginkel.
And Andrew obviously wanted the touchdown, couldn't quite get there. He's down at about the 15-yard line, but back-to-back plays, and then you get the field goal attempt by Bobby Patterson. He knocks it through. Good to have a sophomore back there kicking. Have you ever thought about giving Mason opportunities as games get a little bit out of control, or is that just something that maybe you hold on to for next year?
I have, and the reason I wasn't probably going to do it this one because it was sophomore day and it was his last day, but it has crossed our minds for sure.
Danford almost into the end zone there, but he's pushed out of bounds. And then, Coach, talk about this play. It looked like it was intended for Pratt, and then, it's taken away by Danford McGriff.
It was intended for Pratt, and it was Pratt's touchdown. And McGriff, he says that I know what he's trying to do. He's trying to find an opening rather than pull the defender with him and stole it away from him.
Well, either way, it's Reavers getting on the scoreboard. John Meyering getting some time on sophomore day. The sophomore out of St. Albert. Nice game there to the 40. AJ, another handoff. And again, it's tough running in that secondary. DuPage traveled a little bit light, so by then you guys were running with some fresh bodies at some worn out guys.
Yeah, and like I said, it was really good for John. John worked extremely hard and maybe hasn't had as many opportunities, but when he gets his opportunity, he makes the most of them.
Brock Larson, his lone pass of the season after leading the Reavers to victories last season, gets that completion to Meyering, and then it's DuPage back with the ball. By now you've got the game in control. You run out and get some guys a chance to play that maybe haven't seen much time. It hasn't always been smooth sailing this season. What's it mean to you to get those sophomores some playing time in their final home game?
Well, and that's what you want to end with a game like that where they all get a chance to get into the game. They mean a lot to the program. They're practicing all the time and doing everything that you ask them to do, and they don't maybe get to play as many times on Saturday. So it was good, and that's really what I wanted to do with Brock, for what he's done through this whole year, and has never complained or been down. He just takes advantage of it, goes out there and practices, and comes prepared.
And more importantly, you don't have to file any appeal paperwork. You're eligible for that bowl game, Graphic Edge Bowl, on December the 4th. Another outstanding performance by the defense to close out the season, and the offense cashes in as well on sophomore day. We're going to look back at the entire season during the show, and when we come back, we'll talk Coach Stroh's side of the ball, the offense, more of the season finale of the Stroh Shows right here on CBTV 17 and the Reavers Sports Network. From the studios of CBTV 17 at Canesville Center on the campus of Iowa Western Community College, Jake Ryan and head coach Scott Strohmeyer are back in the hot seats. Coach, let's talk about the offense this year. Lots of talent, but whether it be injuries or just failure to execute at times this year, they just couldn't get consistent. We saw some brilliant performances. You take Butler, for example. You look at the last couple against Ellsworth and DuPage. Obviously, you see a lot of what you were hoping for the whole year. Talk a little bit about your offense and the progression that it made as the season went on.
Well, I think we've made a lot of strides, and sometimes that's not just the players, it's the coaches, it's finding out what we do good, and I'll take a lot of that myself. You try to find a quarterback. We were in the beginning of the year of going back and forth to two, really trying to get a rhythm offensively because nothing was really going. You got a young offensive line that has never played together. They didn't practice together the entire camp. So them trying to get to know each other as well, and what is going to be our strength there. And, I think now, the last probably 4 or 5 weeks, it's more of, early in the season, you want to run what you think is good, your quarterback's new doesn't maybe say vocally what he likes or dislikes. And so now as the season gone, and even though I may like a play, if he's not comfortable with it or I don't feel the confidence there, we're not going to run it. And so we've cut down some things, maybe tried to do too much early on, and then a combination of some guys getting a feel for themselves or playing with each other. But it did take some time with only really, there's really no starters that were really returning off of last year's team.
Yeah, you got a couple of guys that saw minimal work. Let's take a look at Andre Nunez's numbers on the season. Obviously, he's the QB that finishes out the year. Quite a year, 140 for 223 after he really got clicking. 17 touchdowns overall for Andre. He just got more comfortable as the year went on. Is that what led you to maybe rely on him a little bit more instead of that dual quarterback system?
Yeah, and to give him a lot of credit, I think early on, like I said, we maybe tried to do a little bit too much with him, and I think he's a lot more confident than he was, early in the season. And is it because of the two quarterback thing? I mean, I said from the get out, if we're playing well, we're moving the ball offensively. We're not making changes. Early in the season, we were just trying to get a spark. But I do think now that he's a lot more comfortable that he's proven that he's the guy, and getting Nick, some continuity with Nick, with McGriff, and things like that.
Now, AJ saw a couple of plays at wide receiver this year. You started, there was a wrinkle last week as well. Was there ever a thought of maybe putting AJ in at the running back spot or anything like that? Or is that where you want to benefit his future and leave him at the QB and let him continue to progress?
Well, we've discussed it. I think sometimes the fear is that then people think you're not a quarterback. And so he wants a chance at quarterback, and I'm fine with that, but sometimes when you want to get your best players out there, that's what you do as coaches, and we did go through it, but he wants to continue to play quarterback and doesn't want to be labeled that guy that is going to have to move to running or wide receiver.
And Lorenzo Pratt obviously worked hard. As we take a look at his numbers on the season, he was joined in the backfield this year by T-Boy White, by Marquise Hallback, John Meyering, of course, on sophomore day, Yeshua Hicks. You had a career going for Lorenzo where he stepped away for a year last year to concentrate on academics, worked hard, came back this year and was ready to go. 690 career rushing yards. He was in the end zone several times this year. Talk about his efforts. Lorenzo has got just a little bit too small to really bowl people over. When he can get into open space, obviously you can't catch him, but that was the problem with that young offensive line that you talked about. But he did an exceptional job, I thought, with limited resources.
He did, and I give him a lot of credit. He played on the 14 national, the team that went to the national championship and got beat that first year, but he was injuries throughout the whole year. Sat out the entire last year, actually had shoulder surgery and to take care of him, put himself in position to be a mid-year graduate. To this year, really, he talked about leaving at the end of the semester, and we talked about it. I'm glad he didn't, because, he give him a lot of credit for sticking through. He was kind of banged up through this year too, but 122 carries, a little over 500 yards. You'd almost, if we could give him the ball a little bit more, but through some getting beat up, and we struggled running the football a few games. He's got a chance to play at the next level. Where that is, we don't know yet, but we need that little bit. And I think we got a couple guys. He's more of the scat back that we can play at wide receiver and things like that. And I think we're looking at towards next year of getting a little bit more physical, especially with the league we play in. Yeah. The backs take a beating.
Well, let's look at the wide receivers. Obviously, you have a great stable. Nick Easley is a guy that you mentioned already. And Nick Easley, on the year, he just continued to tally those numbers. And again, his yards after catch, that's the most impressive. He doesn't seem like a physically imposing guy or a super quick guy, but as soon as he catches that football, man, he is quick.
He is. The thing with Nick is he's so smart. He runs good routes. He knows where he's supposed to go. Which is amazing, talking to coaches in the league after we play them. Coming into the year, they're looking at Nick Easley and they're saying, okay, where's 15 at? We have to either make sure safety's over the top. There was a comment in the last game that the only place we're throwing is where 15 or 11 is at. And they are both very, we're looking at them in a lot of our concepts that we're doing. But for Nick to be the guy that's featured when Garden City was playing for national championship, is got to know where number 15's at. You got to give a lot of credit to him.
And you mentioned number 11, DeAnthony McGriff, as we look at his numbers on the season. Do you think overall, obviously you didn't have a Taj Williams this year or a Deion Long, but do you think that possibly this is your most talented receiver core that, because of inconsistency in the quarterback, kind of underperformed a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, that 12 receiving core was pretty special across the board. But this one has just as much of the talent, and it's a combination of things. Like I said, the quarterbacks on the same page. I mean, you look at it, you have to spend a lot of time it's not just drawing up plays and running and throwing and catching, it's timing. I look back to, Jake when he, with Deion, just him, Andrew Stone, his brother Matt, when they played, you're on the same page and you know where they're going to be, or you know where you can place the football, his strengths of how he can get the football. And I think that's kind of what limited us a little bit this year. We tried some new things. I wish we'd have been a little bit more consistent at times, but I think when they want to get it going, this group can be pretty darn good, from the young guys outside. But a lot of it's just inexperience and not playing together.
Right. Well, physically, they've got everything that you could ask for in a wide receiving core. They've got height, they've got length, and they've got that speed. Hopefully, they'll be able to put it on display against Holmes, which we'll talk about Holmes coming up. But first, well, since we've wrapped up the offensive side of the ball, let's talk about the defense, the aggressive side of the ball. The Reaver D and coordinator Mike Blackburn will join us to talk the dark side next on the Coach Stroh Show on CBTV 17. From the studios of CBTV 17 at Canesville Center on the campus of Iowa Western Community College, Jake Ryan joined now by defensive coordinator Mike Blackburn. 9th season, well, 8th overall, but 9th year that you've been in Council Bluffs. And I tell you what, if there is a defense that you had to hang your hat on, this wouldn't be a bad one to do it. Obviously, the record doesn't reflect that, but how does the level of talent and what your squad has done this year on the defensive side of the ball, how does that rank all time in your years here at Iowa Western?
Well, I mean, I'd say obviously we've had some pretty good defenses, but the biggest thing with this group this year is that they've been able to overcome a lot. In years past we've had, we were able to put up a lot of points and there really wasn't a whole lot of pressure on us. But this year there was a little bit of pressure put on us, and statistically, I mean, they're up there with some of the best that we've ever had in some categories. And, I'd say I'm just proud of this group. They played through some tough times and very easily could have folded after a couple games earlier in the season. But they kept fighting. They gave us a chance all the way towards the end. And, we got one more shot at a pretty good team here, December 4th.
Well, from front to back, they are pretty good. Let's start with your interior linemen. Obviously, Royal Silver and Joe Ricker, two guys. As we look at Joe Ricker's stats on the year, you look at those two guys who were able to experience Reaver football last season, and then they come through, and both of those guys have been great all year long. Ricker's battled through injuries, and talk about a bulldog. He really goes after it.
I mean, he is, and he's the play that he even got hurt on. I mean, if you watch the clip, he was a defensive tackle running downfield. There's nobody else that was, and he stood out on that play, and that's just the type of player that he is. He's a scrappy, blue-collar Iowa kid. And that's kind of what we've, since I've been here, we hang our hat on defensive line play, and especially inside. And I call him the little molehill. He's not the biggest guy in the world, but, he scraps, and we wouldn't be where we're at right now without him and Royal. And, but I've been proud of Joe. I got a pretty good relationship with him, joke around with him quite a bit. But if I asked him to do something, he's going to do it. And he knows, we got a pretty good relationship that way, that if I look at him a certain way, I know that I need a play, I need you to step up, and he's going to give me everything he's got.
And outside, of course, you've got some transfers, including Lou Brown, Jalen Dingle. You look at Andrew Van Ginkel as we look at his numbers. And then it tails in. Those guys are quick on the edge. They're real tall, and then you got a linebacking core that is probably one of the best that you've ever seen, especially with the two guys that returned, SHAQ Jones and Russell Jones.
Yep.
And if you want something done, you call the Jones brothers, and then you throw in a freshman like Nick Anderson. You've got a transfer like Terrell Collins. I mean, those guys really can take care of business in that linebacking core.
They can. I mean, and they're a great group to coach. And, that's the one thing that I love about what I do is just the relationships that you build with these guys. And, overall as a core, probably the most coachable group that I've ever had. And they're really especially with Russell and SHAQ, they're like coaches out on the football field. I can, tell them something and they're like, hey, you need to look for this. And they'll give me feedback all the time. And so it makes my job a lot easier. They'll see something maybe even before I see it. And then you guys got like Nick Anderson. I mean, I think he's going to be really good, down the line. He's still a puppy learning but I mean, he's just one of those guys, another Iowa kid that just goes 100 miles an hour, done some great things for us. And, and then obviously Terrell, he's one of those guys as well. I mean, I can get after him up and down just as I can all of them, but he's going to take it, yes, sir. And, I mean, he's going to get the job done. And one kid that, I'm looking forward to even next year having back that he got himself dinged up. It's Colton Dinsdale.
Yep.
That kid, I mean, he was, you look at him and, he's not a 6'3", 220-pound kid like Terrell Porter that I used to have that could run around and do everything. But he's a guy that can scrap with the best of them and honestly was one of our most productive players even on the defense before he tore his ACL. So we didn't even have him for majority of the year, and so that's but those guys have done a great job of leading, and I talk to them, the linebacking core, just that's your job. I mean, you got to lead. When we need a big play, everybody's going to look to you. And, they've answered the bells, so far this year. We still got, like I said, we got one more.
Yeah, and then you got the defensive backfield. You look at the outsides with Hakeem Bailey, Tobias Moss, and then the safeties have been great. Ezegwu, Ish Cisse, and then MYKELTI Williams. What was it like to get a guy like him as the season approached?
I mean, MYKELTI is, obviously coming from a great program in Notre Dame. I knew, even his high school, Warren Central there in Indianapolis, I know that program well. And, and we got a lot of people that said a lot of great things about him, coming from Notre Dame. And, just that caliber of a kid. The best thing about MYKELTI is that, just like some of the guys that I coach at linebacker, they're very coachable, and that's what he is. He comes to work every day. Sometimes you don't always get those kids that, you got to stay on them about you can't take a day off, and he's one of those guys you don't have to harp on. He's locked in. When we go down to the practice field, he's locked in. He knows what the offense is trying to do. And we just had a meeting a little bit ago, and with the linebackers, and he stopped in on my meeting. So he sat in there. So that's just he wants to be great. And he's been a great leader for us in the secondary. And that's probably been the most talented from corner to corner, across the board. Probably the best unit maybe I've ever had overall. Maybe the numbers aren't as great as some of but it is what it is. I mean, if I would stack that unit up against any unit that I've ever had here at Iowa Western.
All right, well, here's the number, no pressure. You need 159 yards or less to set the all-time yards from scrimmage mark. That would be in program history, all right?
Okay.
No problem.
No problem.
And he's assistant coach and defensive coordinator Mike Blackburn, and not even a mention of the Cubs, which is a great thing.
Come on.
We'll talk the bowl game when we come back. Head coach Scott Stroh. When we return, you're watching the Coach Stroh Show on CBTV 17. Back in the studios of CBTV 17 as we start the last segment of this 2016 year of the Coach Stroh Show. Jake Ryan along with head coach Scott Strohmeyer. Well, Coach, you look back at that schedule, and it was supposed to be Independence at the beginning of the year, and you're thinking, okay, and then Independence gets bumped off. Then you got Lackawanna. Well, now they're in the top 10, and so that Lackawanna couldn't. And now you get Arizona Western. They're in the national championship game. I mean, you talk about the level of talent that you had to play over the course of the season, and you look at the final rankings and to see so many of those teams still in there, you're pretty lucky to come out with a 6-5 record.
I'll be honest with you, we are. Our team is pretty good, and we got enough talent to be able to play. But we had some bad breaks, on our team and throughout the season. But like I said, Arizona Western, I would never guess that they were playing for a national championship at the beginning of the season. But you come here to play top-level competition, and we did this year.
You look back at all the games, you knocked off number 2 Butler, you knocked off number 10 Dodge City. Highland beat you, but they're in the final top 20. Coffeyville's receiving votes. Hutch is the only team that you ended it with a loss that didn't end up in the top 20 when the polls were done.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I said, it's a battle, in and out, and like I said, we play like we played against Butler, or Dodge City, really, for that matter, and we can beat anybody. And then you play like we played against, say, the second half, or 6 minutes of Arizona Western, and probably 4 minutes of Hutch, and then there's probably a 4-minute or 6-minute span against Garden City.
Yeah.
That Coffeyville was a 2-minute,
quarter,
a 2-minute spill that just. So when we had to stop the bleeding someplace, but I mean, all those top teams, we had to lead. I don't think we trailed for 4 quarters in any one of those. I think every single game we had to lead. We just have to finish it off. And, and that's some things like with a young team, and you say that young, we're not young anymore. But when you don't play, the game of football is so different. You got to play together. And that was probably the biggest thing that I've taken from this season, that we have to find a way to get them to play together, however many reps you can get.
All right, quick preview of the Graphic Edge Bowl. You look at those teams that you played. Arizona Western's in a bowl game, Garden City's in a bowl game, Butler's in a bowl game, Ellsworth's in the bowl game. Now you get another opponent that's in a bowl game against you. Number 9 Holmes comes to the Graphic Edge Bowl in the Unidome. What do you know about them?
Well, everybody I talk to, when I say we're playing Holmes, they're just like, what are you doing? But I mean, our goal is, like I said, to play the best team we can play. We're 6-5. A lot of teams will just go schedule guaranteed win to go 7-5. A team like this is going to bring other recruiters to the game. It's a challenge for us to finish our season off. They run the triple option. They got athletes. It's not a defense, or it's not an offense that you can just. That's why they run it. It's hard to prepare for, so we got to be disciplined, and we'll have our work cut out for us offensively as well. So I'm excited for it. Never played him. Got to know the head coach a little bit. I don't really know him, so this is just kind of another guy that we can meet, and they're excited to come and play. They haven't been to a bowl game in 28 years.
Yep.
So they're going to be excited from that standpoint, and our goal is our guys get another shot.
All right, well, Coach, good luck to you.
Thank you.
And we'll talk with you on game day.
Sounds good.
Head Coach Scott Strohmeyer, 2016 Graphic Edge Bowl coming up December the 4th from the Unidome in Cedar Falls, Iowa. Remember, Sundays are for bowling, and the Reavers look to improve on their 4-1 record all-time on Sunday afternoons. Tickets are available through the Iowa Western Athletics office. Pregame at 2 o'clock, followed by kickoff at 3 on 89.7 The River and NJCAA TV. We say thank you again for coming in all season long to Head Coach Scott Strohmeyer. Today, Defensive Coordinator Mike Blackburn. We thank them for their time, and as always, a very big thank you to the sports media technology students for their excellent work. You can learn more about the program at iwcc.edu. We will talk to you on the 4th of December as the Reavers face the Bulldogs of Holmes. Until next season, I'm Jake Ryan signing off for the Coach Stroh Show, reminding you to wear blue, be loud, and go Reavers.